Hi everyone, I'm Daniel and welcome to Kai Sound. Today on the channel we're going to look at 5 different Marshall amps that all do a Plexi type thing. Originally I'd bought the little guy, the SV20, about 2 years ago, and I really didn't care about Plexis that much before then, but I think a Studio Rats video made me think that there might be something worth checking out there. Turns out I absolutely love it. Not long after, I picked up the 100 watt DSL, which is a JCM 2000 from the early 2000s, because I was kind of interested in what the secondary channel could do from that. Didn't really care about the clean and crunch channel, only was interested in the dirt channel. But when I did try the cleaner channel, I found it was actually pretty decent and not that far away from what the SV20 was doing. Then in an auction, I saw the Vintage Modern from 2007 pop up, 74 50 watt Plexi, which I think is a 1987, and then 78 100 watt Plexi, which is a 1959. I think they're both technically JMPs, but Marshall seemed to have a whole bunch of different names for amps. So the idea of the shootout was to see how close each of them were to each other, and arguably the 100 watt Plexi is the Plexi sound. Now I know that in the 70s they changed to PCBs on these, and originally they had used a different style of assembly. I don't know if that makes a massive difference in sound. I can't imagine that it does, but I'm sure someone in the comments is going to tell me that it makes a huge difference. What I did with each of the amps was I tried to dial them in to where they sounded good to me. I wasn't trying to match up to anything, and in terms of the cabinet and recording of the amps, they all went from the back of the amp into the 2 notes reload, which I don't think you can see, but it's down here somewhere. From there, they ran into the GGD Gold Stack cab simulations, which I think are excellent. I'll show the settings on the screen at some point, and basically I had one cab with a 57 and one cab had a Royer 121, slightly lower in volume to try and fill things out a little bit. Now when I think of a Plexi, I think of AC/DC, and this song or playthrough, whatever you want to call it, is pretty reminiscent of that, I think at least, with a little bit of a Thin Lizzy shuffle thrown in. While you're watching, I'll switch between each of the amps fairly quickly to let you hear the differences. To me, they're not massive differences, but that being said, if they're all going into the same cab, you're not going to have a massive difference between amps. Hope you enjoy. Now, to me, the SV20 sounded the brightest and snappiest. Personally, I quite like that most of the time. There's this odd riff where I'm not massively keen on it, but in general, I really like that sound. The DSL sounded scooped to a degree. It had a lot more of like a hi-fi top end on it and sounded a bit more modern. I didn't dislike it at all. I thought it was quite good, but it definitely sounded different to the others. I think it was the most indifferent sounding. The Vintage Modern had a lot more mid-range, I felt, almost a honky type mid-range, which again, for certain riffs I really liked, for others I wasn't so keen on. You can dial that out, I'm sure. The 50 watt Plexi was quite boomy in the low end, which I didn't love, but then in certain riffs I absolutely thought it was phenomenal. It just depended on the part of the song. It also cleaned up the most and had the least gain, even when the pots were set quite high. Finally we had the 100 watt Plexi, which to me sounded the most balanced of the 5. It maybe had a bit too much gain, but it wasn't miles away from the other 5. Again, like I'd said, ultimately I preferred different amps at different points in the playthrough. There wasn't a winner for me, but I'm very happy with what they can each do. Now, something I've not mentioned is that the DSL was picked up for £350. I think the Studio Vintage was 700 or 800. The Vintage Modern with a cab, I can't remember how much I paid, but that wasn't more than £1,000, I don't think. And then each of these, for a vintage 70s Marshall, there's some up on Reverb for the region of £2,000. Now currently, the Vintage Modern and the two 70s Plexis are up for sale on Reverb and on Marketplace. I wanted to try them out, and I'm glad that I did, but I do think that I get enough from the amps that I have, and additionally, we decided to move house, and I don't want to have to move house with extra stuff if I don't have to. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know down in the comment section, and also by liking and subscribing. Please leave a comment on what you think sounded the best. Now I'll show you a different playthrough which repeats the riffs, and that way you can hear each amp in a bit more detail. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've been Daniel, and this has been Kai Sound.